I'm here in Medjugorje and I'm with, what's your name?
Honor.
Where are you from?
I'm from Dublin, outside of Dublin.
And you told me you came a long time ago. You were at the beach in Croatia.
On holidays.
Tell that story. That's so
Yeah.
amazing.
I came to Croatia in 1989 and was here and knew about Medjugorje, but it was too far. Came back the next year, my 4 children ranging from 16 down to 6. And we came on a day trip, but we left very early in the morning, 6. We were here for the Mass. And we went into the church, and I had never experienced anything like it. It was extraordinary. Just this feeling of total peace and just a spiritual feeling I hadn't had. And there was a lot of stuff going on in my life, difficulties at home. And I was here and, a little bit worried about things. So I went to the Eucharist and I came back to the seat. And it's like as if I was no one else in the church but me. It was just enveloped in this love and this light, and I started to cry, and my daughters were looking at me, but I didn't care. I wasn't embarrassed, and we came out and we met the guides, and they were very good guides, and they told us the story. I knew a little about it here from some lady that helped me with the children, but I thought it sounded, a little bit over the top maybe,
yeah.
But I was yearning to know more. Mm-hmm. And she told us that the guys, and one of the guys had been in the IRA. So my sons were fascinated, and they had a conversion in prison and then went on to be a priest later. But he was so inspirational. My son Stephen was fascinated. So they went to Apparition Hill. I stayed with my youngest daughter in the cafe because she was tired. Mm-hmm. And they came down, and then the guide met us all. There was about 25 in the group from the hotel. And we were all due to go back down that evening for dinner to our resort. And the guy said, maybe you'd like to stay for the apparition. And everybody said, yes, yes. So in those days, it was in the church, in the loft, in the, the upstairs of the church. So we were all outside and everyone was praying the rosary in different languages. And there was French and Italian and German and Portuguese even. And then the English, somebody started, and I had a little rosary, and my son knelt down, and we'd never really said rosaries at home. I took them to church and all, and he started praying the rosary, and I could feel so moved, young guy of 16, like into the pop music and the sport. And here he was praying. And suddenly we looked up to the sky and we saw this magnificent color. Rainbow colours, and it's like as if the sun came down in the form of the Eucharist, and there was a cross but I was there because it was so extraordinary, all this happening. So then it finished the apparition, and also the birds. We noticed the birds stopped the minute the apparition started. There was all these birds tweetering and there was silence. So that was the end of that. So then we were all there, but I could hardly speak. All this had happened, and coming from a resort down with all the bars and the beach to be brought into this spiritual enclave. So we went back down to the hotel, and I was on the bus, and it was like, all I wanted to do was go back to Medjugorje. I didn't want to go back. But
no?
Yeah, just stay. Yeah. So we went back down, and we finished the holiday. We went home, and things were not good at home. My husband wasn't well, and there was difficulties with very difficult. But the only thing I wanted to do when I got back home to Dalkey was go to Mass. And there was an evening Mass in the parish, and I had arrived late the night, so very tired the next day, but I was down. It was like propelled. I was like drawn. And I remember meeting the local priest, and he was not too keen on Medjugorje. He said, I don't hear. I said, Father, I've never experienced. So he listened a little bit, but,
Mm-hmm.
But so then every sort of daily Mass, and then I said, I have to go back to Medjugorje. Mm-hmm. So there was the next week in the church, I see a sign. It was a group going in October. So I booked it, arranged babysitters, off I went. But arrived here, thunder, lightning, rain, wind, fog, everywhere, chaotic, dreadful flight. And all these people, they were very holy people. They were coming. And I was just a beginner, really. I said, oh, what have I done? And I arrived and we stayed in a little farmhouse way out. And I said, I don't like it at all. What am I doing here? We were all sharing rooms and but the family were beautiful. I remember being so impressed with the warmth of the family and the granny coming up with the fruit and the wine. So anyway, there was 3 priests with us, which was very good. Young priest in particular, I got on well. He was working out in South America. So anyway, the first few days, as I said, it was cold, wet, windy. I said, this is different than what I remember this isn't like, I don't feel anything. I think they're all a bit too much. And I said, I wish I was going home. So anyway, there was a beautiful woman in the group. She was Italian. She lived in Ireland, Miria. And she was the most beautiful, holy, spiritual, kind lady. So she could see me a bit, Shauna, don't worry, you will be fine. And I met Father Slavko through her.
Wow.
So when I met Father Slavko, and he put his hand on me, and he said, Our Lady wants you here for a reason. So that was the beginning of it. And then that night we went to his adoration. And it was still cold, but it wasn't as bad, wasn't as wet. And he came down the whole center aisle of the church with the monstrous and the Eucharist to each person all around, went outside, and there was a little Down syndrome boy, and he went to him and I could feel myself. So things went very good. I started trying to pray more. And on Friday, they were going up Priestvac. And I said to Mary, I'm not very fit. I don't want to go up the mountain. And she said, no, we will go slowly. You will be fine. You will be fine. So anyway, and also the sun had come out. It then was 28 degrees. So I said, this is good. I'll get some suntan going home, being silly, vain woman. So anyway, we went on the mountain and we broke away from the group. They were going very quick. And she had Father Slavko's prayer book. For the stations, and she was reading in this beautiful, gentle voice. And and then I don't know what station, and maybe the 4th station, she was kneeling, and I knelt down, and she started praying for my children, and she named each child, and I just got so emotional to hear their names, and suddenly I just reopened my heart to Jesus, to God. And I heard this voice saying, be not afraid, I go before you. And I thought the priest had come back with prayers. It wasn't an interior voice. It was like as if I had it was a voice of and it was the most beautiful voice that you could ever imagine. And I was there and I said to Miriam, but she said, what do you expect? She didn't think anything. Because she had seen extraordinary things here and she was so close to Our Lady. So I got up, I ran up the hill. I don't even feel. I got to the cross. I put my hands on the cross and it was like as if my body, everything was taken away that was worrying and just I was given a peace. And I remember crying. But I didn't care who saw me, and I would be self-conscious. So I came down the mountain and I met a lady, and I met her years after that. And she said, excuse me, she said, you must have had an experience. And I said, yeah. She said, the Holy Spirit is shining out of you. I can see. And I met her, as I say, about 5-6 years later. And she said, you're the woman. I said, yeah. So anyway, we came back down. I was so happy. I felt, it was such an experience. And that last day, there was a mass. And CNN were here then. Because it was early days, they were filming this mass in the Adoration Chapel. And the priest said to me, would you do a reading? And I said, oh no. I said, I'd be too shy. I couldn't do that. I'm not. Look, he said, the other people were all from rural Ireland and their accents, he said, well, you've a plain voice, you'd be good. I said, no. He said, well, the Lord is asking you. Just put your pride away. You go and do it. So I said, okay. So I went and I did it and it was okay. All right. So I came back to Ireland and that evening down to the mass again. And the first thing the priest came up and said, can you be a reader? We need readers. So I felt it started here. And so I took on the ministry, and I'm reading now since 30 years in my parish. And now sometimes you have to struggle, and the devil will get into situations. I'm separated now 7 years from my husband, but I'm in my own house. I'm happy. The children are okay. It's not ideal, but they knew it was difficult for many years. And one of my daughters came out here and worked with Father Slavko after the war. And my other son is a faith. He goes to mass. My other two, no, particularly my youngest daughter. But through Medjugorje, I had a life-changing experience. And I'm not saying it made everything perfect, but you never lose the faith in the Lord and Jesus. And I've been back here now. I've lost count. I come sometimes twice a year if I have the money. And this time I wasn't going to come. And then I said to Our Lady, look, make things happen. That'll be easy. I'd booked a flight, but there was problems. I have a small little cat and no one was minding the cat. And I was worried I said, I don't think I'll go. And then my daughter said, I'll come and stay. I'll mind the cat. You go. So I was here, and I'm with my lovely friend, Catherine, and I'm here since 10 days, and I go back next week. But I hope to still live the message and to bring the hope of Medjugorje back to my parish and to my friends. So
and why do you come back all the time?
I'm drawn. Yeah. And every time I'm getting older now, and I say, I don't think I'll be going this year. No, but I love Croatia anyway. So I was in Split for 2 days. I still think it's the most beautiful country.
Yes. The seaside.
The seaside. And the architecture in Dubrovnik and Split and, Savtat I've stayed in. So normally I come with a group and we have a few days on the coast and come up. But this time I was on my own, but I'm just drawn back. And I think there's something here that's nowhere else, because Our Lady is appearing here, and the people also. There's a joy and there's companionship, and you're never lonely here. You know, there's always someone to smile and then the ceremonies at night, the mass outside with the music, the beautiful music and the adoration. It's like nowhere else. And I really, really, and anyone that maybe will be listening to this that hasn't been, come and see, and you will be blessed many times, and it'll change your life, and it'll give us all a hope. And I think we need it now, the way the world is. And there's a lot of sadness, particularly in Ireland. There's a lot of family dysfunction. The faith, people are giving up, and it's all materialism. But we need, there's a hole in everyone's soul, I feel, and it has to be filled. So I really think Medjugorje has been the most wonderful experience for me.
Beautiful. You prayed the rosary now?
Yeah, I prayed the rosary and
daily, or how do you?
Daily.
Why do you pray it? What does it give to you? We humans do something to gain something.
Yeah.
What does the rosary give?
The rosary, funny, I used to have difficulty with the rosary. I found it a little bit, but I found a wonderful website, Laudate, and there's Christian Peschken. He's a young, a German guy
funny,
who was converted from Lutheranism. A friend of mine told me, and I often put his podcast on and say it with him, because he says a beautiful little prayer, a dedication, but not too long, in between each decade. And he has a very attractive voice. And Christian Peschken is his name. And I find now I put that on and I say the rosary. It's easier. Because
the same YouTube, you can go to Lourdes.
3
o'clock in the afternoon, live from Lourdes.
Yeah, and it's easier, isn't it? Because it's somehow, because to sit down alone, and it's just sometimes seems to be so long, and Divine Mercy I find easier. But since discovering, so I'd say the rosary every day. I go to mass unless I'm not well. Go to mass every day, and I would have. There's adoration in my parish, with Father Jamie, my lovely Father Jamie Toohey. Yeah.
I did the video, check it out on the channel, search Father Jamie, yeah.
Oh, right. Yeah. Well,
so you do the adoration, yeah?
I do the adoration. There's a little adoration chapel. And then on Friday, he does a holy hour. So I try and go to as much as I can, not always make it. Sometimes I'll say, I'm too tired. But I say, no, that's not good. You have to keep the momentum going, I think, and it's a two-way. It's God will bring you and Jesus bring you, but they want you to come back and give what you have as well.
And I think adoration is a bit like sunbathing in God.
Yeah.
Do it. You will see so much healing. I see it now in my life. You will speed up your healing. If you need healing, go to adoration. Sit in the Catholic Church. Even if the tabernacle is closed, you will receive a lot, an important message. I see the last months now, much more adoration, much calmer, and you will get the healing. Ask the question in front of Jesus.
Yeah.
Be still. God is fighting for you there.
Yeah. And it's beautiful. And you can feel that it's like a balm. You can feel, but you have to, as I say, you can't just think everything can happen and you do. You have to make the effort and say the rosary, go to the adoration. And I also have a beautiful book, the Magnificat.
Yeah.
And
what's that about?
it's a daily prayer. It's monthly. And it has all the readings of the day and the morning, evening prayer. And it's beautifully produced. And then the other thing I recommend anyone is Bible Alive. That comes from Birmingham parish in England, and every day there's a teaching on the scriptures for the day, and a lot of priests, I've given it to priests because it's beautifully and it's very simple. And you know, there's things like that can help you just to have a little formula with prayer.
Yes.
So really, I think
there it is again.
Magnificat and Bible Alive. Yeah.
That's Manchester, you said England?
This is from England, and this is international. I think it's printed in Switzerland, but it's worldwide. And it's, I get them posted. So, you know, it's not that much money, and it's wonderful to get them to your house. Again, it's a little formula to have a little program for yourself, because human nature is, you know, you can,
especially these days.
Distraction.
Yes.
So this is a little way of focusing on the prayer, and it's you know, it's wonderful, and it's.
And I would like to add, if you do adoration, pray the rosary in front of Jesus, and it's even more powerful. It's a very powerful combination.
The two to go. Yeah. So
how is, you know, you go to mass every day now? Why do you go to mass every day?
Because, well, I received the Eucharist, so I feel that I'm so close to Jesus then. And also, there's a beautiful community in our church in Shankill. People they're just so lovely, and there's a great faith. It's something about the parish, and again, Father Jamie and Father Michael, the parish, when you go, and it's not long, 25 minutes of your day in the morning, the day goes much better then. You know, it keeps you, it gives you fuel for the day, your fuel for your soul, and it's a good way to start. It's a little routine, you know, get up, have your shower, go to the mass, because I by nature could be a bit lazy, and I'd be reading the iPad, the paper, the news, and I'm better just to go to the church and then go from there. And the day is blessed, you know. So I'd say daily mass is wonderful. If people can go, it's fantastic, you know.
And how is confession for you? A lot of people are scared to go to confession. They go here often in Medjugorje after 20, 30 years.
Yeah.
And here it seems to be easier. What would you tell people? What is the beauty of confession, and why not be scared?
Well, if you think that you're really going to Jesus, and to pray before you go, that the Holy Spirit guides what you say, because you always feel self-conscious a little bit, and human nature, what I'm going to say, and you know, you're going through your life, and you maybe thinking of sins you've been forgiven, and then they come back a bit at you, but the minute I go to confession, before I go, I say, Lord Jesus, just let me be aware I'm with you. The priest is only in representation, but it is quite daunting sometimes. And, sometimes maybe some priests are easier than others, you know, and if you find one, you mightn't have go to another priest, find the priests, because they will be there for you, you know, and the Lord will point you. So not to be afraid, and you feel such freedom after confession, because it's better than any therapy or any psychiatrist, because your whole mind is cleared, and and you just feel full of joy from confession, even though people are a little afraid, but there's no need to be. You know, they should really just go and trust in the Lord, really. That's
how is for you fasting? That's another stone in Medjugorje. Is that hard?
Difficult, yeah. I suffer a little bit sometimes in my stomach, so I have to be careful not to go too long without food, because I don't feel well. So I can fast in other ways. Friday now, I'd never eat meat. I wouldn't have any wine. I like that. Anything. I would try and restrict sweet things, but I wouldn't be able to keep the bread and water going. I used to when I was younger, but now I didn't feel so. So I've spoken to a priest. So he said, you can fast. I don't look at television maybe on Friday or Wednesday, you know, things deny myself, but I admire people that can do the bread and water. I mean, it is hard. But in Lent, I've done it. I have done it with just maybe a clear soup and bread and nothing else, and just cut down because need to lose.
That's a start to cut down something.
Cut down, yeah.
Smoking, whatever.
Yeah.
It is.
So I don't smoke. That's good. I don't smoke.
Other vices you have.
Yeah, when I was young maybe. But I like wine. I don't drink a lot, but I like nice wine, so I wouldn't have any wine. But I would love to be able to do always the bread and water. But in Lent, I've done it for just have one meal and nothing else. But it's a powerful thing that people can do. And I know when they fast, the scriptures can come alive and prayer is more intense. Yeah, because you're cutting away from, the world and you're focusing. So, but I'm always struggling a little bit with it, but I will keep trying anyway, and hopefully.
And over the years, what is your favorite spot here in Medjugorje? Did it change over the years? Did Medjugorje change?
People ask me that too, and considering that it's 32 years since the first one, it's not that different. You still have the beautiful vineyards and, of course, the mountains. Once you're at the back of the church, I love the mosaic, the luminous mysteries and the risen Christ. I think that is the most beautiful sculpture. And I've been in a lot of places and holy places, but that stands out to me. He's an Italian sculptor. I don't know his name, but every time I'm there, it's extraordinary. And the way you can sit around it. So I love to get to that area, and that's very peaceful. And it's away from, I think you need to get away from the fussing and the cafes and the noise. You need to not, because you could waste your days just walking around the shops and looking. You need to get out on your own and walk the vineyards in particular over towards the Blue Cross and that area. That's the same as when I first came. So, and the church is so distinctive, I think. It's the same. There's a, I don't know what it is, the inspiration of the two towers. There's something about St. James Church and the beautiful backdrop of the mountains too. So it hasn't really now much more hotels, of course, but then the people are coming here. So people say, oh, it's commercial, but they need the places to stay, and it's giving employment to the villagers because there's a lot of poverty around here. So, Our Lady is working here in every aspect, I think. And, it's just a wonderful place, and I'd recommend anyone
why would you recommend? What would you tell them at the end?
I would just say, please come to Medjugorje and open your heart, and whatever problems you have, you'll be given a new strength through Jesus and through the prayer, and your focus will come off yourself, and you'll see just the beauty of closeness to God, really, and take you out of the materialism that we all live in. You'll find a peace here that you won't find anywhere else, but because Our Lady is here. And people ask me and say, oh, and I always seem to think one line is very good. When early days, she came and she said, I've come here to tell you God exists. And that blew me away, because that is such a strong statement, because there's so much disbelief. So I always say to people, well, that's the message, that God exists. And people have come here. There's a couple I have told them, and they've come and they have had a beautiful experience also. And there's other people have come and said, oh, no, I didn't. So I just say a prayer for them, and not everybody is going to get the same, thoughts and feelings. But certainly I would say to anyone, if they can come, please come.
And can I say, the last question is, we have the 5 stones, and I have the feeling Our Lady wants to teach something else, to surrender to God's will Did you make the same experience over the year when you surrender your will, when you live in the divine will, that you are much more peaceful, more joyful?
Oh, 100%. Yeah. Because then God's in control. You're not you. And you're just whatever he wants, the way he wants you to live. That's going to be the best way for you because he only wants good for you. And you'll get this peace that you can't find elsewhere. You can't find through other philosophies or other ways of life, you know. So it's absolutely,
It's like that.
God is so important in the center. God is in the center.
Thank you so much for that beautiful interview.
Thank you very much for